Welcome, and thank you for joining us for another edition of Live by Heart Today. Oh, show 47, Freedom of Choosing, featuring your hosts, Don Spiegelburg and Wendy R Wolf. Our show begins now. Streaming from Retro Earth Studio and brought to you by
Learn to play jazz piano like a pro, by a pro, with Jazz Piano Pro Essentials at jazzpianopro.com.
and wearehistorically.com, conscious human apparel. It's time for the next episode of Live by Heart
Today.
Hello and welcome to the Live by Heart Today show number 47. We're excited about this one. This is a show designed to help you navigate change, uncertainty, and the new world we found ourselves living in. We'll talk a little bit about science, a little bit about how our body works, a little bit about intuition, and we'll talk a lot about transformation. I'm Dawn Spiegelburg, a posture therapist and coherence coach. We're focusing on living agreements, and today's theme is freedom of choosing. With me for our Heart to Heart is my co-host, Wendy R Wolf, professional transformation facilitator. Hey, Wendy.
Hey, Dawn. It's awesome to have this conversation. We continue to talk about living agreements. And in this case, I feel like we're focusing here on our agreements about how we choose to be. Like last time, it was a lot about agreements about how we came in to this world, what kind of seed we are, and the agreements we made along the way that got us where we are. What got us where we are. And now today, I feel like we're talking about where we can go from here, how we can make choices to go forward in freedom. And all those other things we talked about last time, love and life and truth. How can we go forward by choosing? That's what I believe the general container is today. And it's an exciting one.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And one amazing benefit of practicing heart coherence and living by heart is that it improves our cognition. When we improve our cognition, it allows us to see more choices. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
So our choices are limited when we're living under stress and duress and fear. And why are our choices limited? Because if we're living under stress and fear, then there's something that is threatening our very survival. And we're compelled to identify what that is so that we can stop living in fear, right? Get rid of the threat so that you can change and live more comfortably. And unfortunately, for many of us, we don't know that, and we don't know what the threat is, and we constantly continue to live in fear and stress. And the body breaks down. That's the stage that disease begins to develop. So it's not good for us.
Yeah. And so we were talking about last time, we can start to notice. Like we talked about last time, if we just could start to notice and see what the fruit is and what's happening. And I love it that you're saying, and we were saying, okay, and then you can make choices. And one of the things is the practice of heart coherence, to start to be able to notice, but also start to be able to see new possibilities and then make choices out of that. And that's kind of a theme for us, by the way. We've done a lot about that, but it's so important. And we need to hear it usually more than once. That more is possible, and we can notice it, and then we can choose into it.
Yes. One thing to recognize is that we were given the blueprint for how to live from our parents. So early on, from the age of 0 to 7, our subconscious mind is developing and receiving information, and there isn't the conscious mind fully developed in order to reject information. That doesn't become really well developed until we're 8 or 9, where we begin deciding for ourselves what we want to be true or not true. But the implication is that how the environment is how our parents set up our growth period from 0 to 7 is how we believe life is. And it's really incredible that as an adult, you can see or recognize a pattern in yourself that was developed or given to you when you were 3 years old or 4 years old. And it's like a computer. And you have this software that keeps running, and your hardware can change, right? Now you're grown up, now you're an adult, and you look like an adult, but the software you've got running is still that software that was given to you when you were 3 or 4 years old. That's not easy to swallow.
It's just assumptions. It's the story we live in. It's just the vibration we live on subconsciously. Yeah. And then what happens after that? How do we keep going, Dawn?
So 0 to 7, it's a very global understanding. We're learning who we are, how we fit into the scheme of who our parents are, who are the local enforcers of law, who are my neighbors safe or are they not safe? What's the local grocery store for all of us? Because many people don't grow their own food, right? So they have to go get it from the store. So all of these things we're developing in a very broad way as children up to the age of 6 or 7, like I mentioned. And then when we reach 8, 9, 10, up until the age of 14 and 15, we are developing close relationships. That's when we want a best friend. That's when students at school develop little cliques, right? You might like sports, so you're in the group that is always playing outside, or you might like to braid hair and nail polish, so you're always in the corner with the girls exchanging ideas and making little friendship bracelets, right? Or you might be smart, so you're with your friends figuring out how to get a grasshopper to jump.
Or puzzles or whatever.
Yeah. Whatever it is, right? You're finding your niche and you're finding where you fit, and it's a one-to-one relationship. So yes, there's still the global, the environment at the school and the environment on the playground, but you're looking for that close friend so that you can develop how to be in relation to another single person. So how we are from 8 to 15 really is significant in how we are in our marriages and in our partnerships later on. So that's pretty incredible. If you think about what was happening to you during those ages, it has a big influence on how you are in the world. So if you moved from school to school multiple times during those years, then you were having to redevelop relationships, right? You may not have an understanding of what a long-term relationship really is, because you had to go to a different place. When you turn 16, and then through 20 and 21, our focus becomes global again. So we look at the world, and as teenagers, we see all the things that are wrong with the world. We see what's wrong with our parents, why our parents aren't thinking clearly, right? And there's that pushback. Why isn't the world better? There's the desire to make the world better. And this idea of becoming independent of those things from when we were 0 to 7 and those things when we were 8 to 15. And what's amazing, the rebellious stage, what's amazing is that the things from those earlier years are set in us. So even in our rebellion, we're often still expressing those things, the very things we desire to rebel against. So it's an amazing journey. And I'm noticing we don't really have very many rites of passage in our culture. There's the driving, and then there's the voting, and voting goes along with, drinking alcohol in this state, right? But I don't think of those as supportive rites of passage necessarily.
Right. Yeah.
So with regard to our
Yeah.
theme,
And then in that third part, that 16 to 21, because you said, all right, the beginning patterns we see go through life in how the world is. And the second one is kind of how we do relationships from the 8 to 15 or whatever, how we do relationships. And then that third part, what is it? What's the corollary? How we do...
It's global again.
How we see the world.
Yeah, it's, what do we like about the world? What do we don't like about the world? Who are we? And how are we going to change what do we perceive in the world? And how are we going to contribute as adults? Which when we're 23 and 24, then we're just thrust into this idea of being an adult.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And we may not be developed as an adult, even though we are now adults, right? It's post-college, it's find a career. Yeah. How much support did you get in expressing who you are? Or did your parents say, well, we're in a family of doctors and you have to be a doctor too? Right. There's so many things to balance and really figure out.
Yeah. So this is really fascinating because all these are wet cement, become more like ruts, become more like ruts. And then we navigate it as if it's the truth, as if it's how it is.
Beautifully said.
But we can actually change. Maybe a better picture than cement is kind of like the muddy field that we go through on our bicycles and our feet, and it has all the stuff, and then it dries. But more rain can come. We can bring some water and soften it, and maybe make a more fun bike track or something. Ruts that we don't have to be tripping on. So that's possible, but it helps to understand where it came from and start to heal that in all different ways. Like I talk about things like reparenting, and I talk about things like soul retrieval and stuff, getting the lost parts back that we left behind. We chopped off our arms and legs to fit in the box, and now we can get them back. It's really possible, which is exciting.
Yeah. And I think of it in terms of our safety, our sense of safety, because when we look at Maslow's hierarchy of need again, without safety, without food, without shelter, without the basic necessities, there is not the ability to choose outside of that. Those are things that as humans we must secure. We must have those in order to progress. And that's not true of the animal kingdom. The animal kingdom, a squirrel is raised a squirrel. It knows it's a squirrel, and it doesn't think about its own safety. And the time that it does think about its safety is when I open the door and the dogs run out and they say, oh, time to go up the tree. And so they do.
It's like instinct.
Yes. And then they're safe. And then they wait for the dogs to go back in the house, and then the squirrels come back down. But they don't question their squirrelness.
Right.
They learn some things from their parents, but innately they know, look for seed, bury the seed, eat it in the winter.
Yeah. Now, when the squirrel is raised by people, that's when things get screwy. Right. That's why we don't encourage that.
Yeah.
Right. Because they need to learn from squirrels. Some of it is instinct, and some of it is, squirrel see, squirrel do. And isn't some of it?
Well, yes, definitely. And I have a great example of this because we bought chickens. And when these chicks were, a day old, 2 days old, 3 days old, right? They didn't have a chicken mother to show them what to eat. And I wasn't with them all the time. They were in a box. So, I showed them where the food was. I dipped their beaks in water, and they were constantly pecking at everything to see, do I eat this? Do I eat that? And every time I would observe them, I would realize they really need somebody to be teaching them this stuff, because I can't do it. I'm not a chicken. And having that guide to teach them is very important. And even now, they're 4 months old. they're still outside investigating everything, even the things they shouldn't eat. They're still investigating them because they don't know and they don't have a chicken to show them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there might be an insect in some of those things to eat. There might. There's this wonderful, I put it on Facebook, this wonderful, sweet little video of a man. He couldn't get his puppy to learn to go down the stairs. He could not get him to learn. And then he did it himself on all fours going down, which is a little scary, by the way. It's a whole different orientation to put your head down the stairs first. Anyway, he did it, and the puppy picked it up in like no time. And that's really a good, I mean, it was adorable, but also it's like, that's us. That's us. Certainly for the first 7 years, that's us. How do you do this? Oh, okay, that's how they're doing it. The siblings, the neighbors, the other family, and the parents especially. How do we do this? And then we find out. And then we grow up and we look around and we think everybody lives in the same world that we do, but they don't. They live in the same world that we do with the overlays of this or that. Like, I grew up with a lot less safety than you did. So, for lots of reasons. So, like, the world that I live in is just not as safe as the world that you live in. And I've had to deal with that. And I've come so far. I mean, I can do all these things, but the question of my safety is never far away. And, you know, it's a little screwy, but yeah.
And I want to mention, this is a perfect opportunity to talk about mirror neurons, because the puppy saw the man walk down the stairs, and we have specialized cells in our brain that see and learn directly from seeing.
Yes.
And so when your mother is cutting vegetables, you are seeing her do it. You're seeing the knife. You're seeing how she holds the vegetable. You're seeing her cut, and you learn by seeing. And animals learn by seeing, and people learn by seeing.
Yeah. And I mean, it just, this is a little painful. I'm noticing it's like, I'm always going around in our relationship, because Michael and I have been together for 25 and 3/4 years. It's unbelievable. And that's what I'm always saying. This is unbelievable. This is unbelievable. How come I get to be so happy? I'm totally getting away with this. Why am I getting away with this? Right? Like, that's the world I live in. I'm always like, this isn't how it should be. Right? I shouldn't be happy and loving and free.
Who
and
says?
Having a good time. Well, my parents say.
Oh.
Right? Like, because I grew up and I looked around me, and, you know, my own family, God knows I didn't want that. And I looked around at all the other relationships I could see, and I was just like, I don't want any of these. I don't want any of these. Same thing with being a woman. I looked around, I'm like, I don't want to be any of these. What am I going to do? I'm in big trouble. I cried when I got my period. I'm like, the last thing I want is to be a woman, because why would I want that? It's a big deal. And then fortunately, thank God, through Girl Scouts, when I was in junior high and high school, I started to meet like women I wanted to be. I got the mirroring, thank God. And I stopped resisting it so much. I still had gender stuff, but right. Like, and so it really makes a difference who we grow up with and what is patterned. And sometimes it's just patterned. That's just how I am. And sometimes it's like, I'm not a chicken. What am I going to do around here? Right. I'm the ugly duckling. What? There's no hope for me.
Yes.
But there is.
You're reminding me of growing up. I grew up in a church, and I loved being with the young kids. And the opportunity to be with young children was to be in Sunday school or to be in the nursery. And so for whatever reason, just being with younger people was a beautiful connection for me. You could be authentic, right? It was just a wonderful thing. And it grated against me when my mother would say, "Oh, you're going to make such a good mom." And I was just like, what? This isn't the thing, right? I'm not here because I want to be somebody's mother. I'm here to make connections with human beings.
Which makes a good mother, by the way.
Isn't that interesting, right? But she just kept concluding, oh, you just want to be a mom. And no, that wasn't it at all.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, being present with, connecting, seeing, communicating.
Mm-hmm.
The fundamentals of basic human connection make for great parenting.
Mm.
Who knew?
Who knew?
Yeah. So I wanted along the way today to talk a little bit about other paradigms of development and evolution. It doesn't have to be now, but are
Yeah,
we ready for that?
let's take a short break and we'll talk about those patterns.
Awesome.
Thank you, We Are Historically, for your conscious human apparel. Shop online at wearehistorically.com.
Are you feeling powerless, frustrated, hurt, upset, or just plain disappointed with results you're living? Are you fatigued, burnt out, or just don't care anymore? When you're in that state of mind, everything appears unappealing and completely joyless. I mean, what's the point in doing anything if all you get is struggle and strife for it? Let me help you get unstuck and live your life full on. All you have to do is pick up your phone and call, and you'll get proven solutions that alter the way you experience your life. You can live better right now, today. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Darius Wilrich. I instruct an online video course that teaches anyone how to play jazz piano like a pro with my proven step-by-step system that makes it simple to learn. Jazz Piano Pro Essentials. Enroll today at jazzpianopro.com and download my free quick start guide.
Welcome back to the Live by Heart Today show. We're talking about freedom of choice, and Wendy is going to chat with us about other theories, other modeled ideals.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Dawn. If you watch the show, you know that I'm a big fan of teleos, becoming who we are, explicating, growing out that oak that lives in the acorn and becoming our true selves, becoming the seed we are, because you might be an orange tree and I might be a lemon tree. And so I've been on the lookout and more excited about these theories. And what's happened in the last several decades is these different theories of child development have come along, which help us understand, married to these theories of spiritual or soul development that have happened over the millennia, of mystics, etc. And they've been put together to make really interesting understandings of the patterns of how our consciousness continues to evolve. I believe this, you don't have to. But there's been different theories through the ages, and I'll talk just a couple about them. But the person I feel like is really a forerunner in the next understanding about all this, his name is Ken Wilber, and he's wrote a lot of books. He calls his theory integral, like integrity, but integral. And he has a lot of books and he has a lot of videos and stuff. You can see him. It gets very complex. I particularly like a younger version of his theories that have Christian flavor, which I've talked about before, by Jim Marion, called Putting on the Mind of Christ, the inner work of Christian spirituality. It really applies to everyone, but it has Christian examples and paradigms. If you like a Christian flavor, what I like about that book is it's not too complex. It's very accessible from my perspective. I've had a few friends read it and they're just like, Wendy, it's just too thick. And I'm like, well, then read Wilbur. That's thick to me. Anyway, other people have built on his theories. On Denny Epstein, which he created the network chiropractic and other healing modalities, this 12 stages of healing, different approach to wholeness, that kind of thing. He has his own stuff, and it also correlates to Wilbur's stuff. And earlier than Wilbur, M. Scott Peck, who you might be familiar with, he wrote about the stages of spiritual growth. And before that, Ram Dass was talking about different channels of consciousness, like changing the channel, how we go through different consciousnesses. And presumably that's from his training in India. And all the way, I mean, this goes back and back and back. There's so many choices. I'll just give you one more, which is Nietzsche. Nietzsche talked about he just talks about three major sets of consciousness. How we go from a camel saying, load me up, let me serve, load me up. And then the camel runs out into the desert, and the more we carry, that we become a lion, become a bigger lion, and we encounter a dragon called thou shalt. So there's very things we learned, we're socialized, and then can we become unsocialized? The very things we're talking about. Can we take apart all the thou shalts? And like every scale of the dragon glitters with like all the shoulds, all the thou shalts. When we finally kill the dragon, we become a child. We become a wheel rolling from its own center. We become a holy yay, a holy yes unto life. So anyway, I find all this very exciting and interesting, and it's my main motivation because, you know, I have friends over time. They're just like, haven't you healed enough? Haven't you grown enough? Haven't you deepened enough? And I'm just like, no. And like now, like these help me have words. Why? Because there's more. And as just the consciousnesses you described, if you have this consciousness, this experience, you bring it with you, then you have this consciousness. It's a totally different consciousness. It's a different world. And we keep going, and we're all keeping going. But if we actually attend to it, we keep going faster and become experiencing more love, more truth, more life, more consciousness, more noticing, more choices, more freedom.
That's I love that you said we go faster, because that just put into perspective something my father used to say all the time, and that was, time is going by so fast. And I don't see that that's true. But what I do see is that my own growth is fast. And when inside me I'm growing, the outside world slows. And that's not to say my father didn't grow, but his perception was that the outside world was going by quickly.
I certainly know when I do push-ups, it goes really slow. Time goes really slow.
There was some video, and I don't recall the title of it, but it was about time, right? It was the 2 minutes you're waiting at a light to change, right, is different for the person who's 2 minutes away from getting the help from the paramedic, which, you know, is 1 minute away from the person who's going down the wrong side of the road, and, you know, the minute before they crash into you is a really long minute, you know, like all these different perceptions of time.
Yes. Have you had that happen where you're in an accident or something and time slows?
Oh, yeah.
It's wild.
And I have that often, not because of accident, but because of fencing.
Really?
In fencing, these things happen frequently, where our perception of time can speed up or slow down while we're in competition with someone else. So,
oh, Dawn, that's so exciting. So you're in a practice of mastery in which you are practicing in a place where you can allow time to slow down.
Yes.
And to do what needs to be done.
Yes.
Kind of like Neo in the Matrix.
Yes. And it's all about choice. And my teacher said, and his teacher told him, that life is a simplified form of fencing.
Yeah, beautiful.
And when we learn to master the sword, we're mastering ourselves.
Yes.
So.
Yes, that's all mastery, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it is that we choose to devote ourselves to. Yeah. And that's a different way to talk about these levels that I was just talking about, right? The mastery brings us along. we just do the everyday practice. We do our finger exercises on the piano, and we come along, and it changes us as we change our ability to do. We change our beingness as well.
Yeah.
It's very exciting.
And it expands our ability to choose. We
Yes.
get more freedom to choose.
Yes.
And the idea of slowing time, I'd like to bring it back around full circle, because in prior shows we've talked about between stimulus and response, there is a moment.
Yes.
And we're talking about not slowing time necessarily, right? Because time just continues, but we're talking about noticing. We're talking about our intention, where we're placing our focus. Are we just focused on the stimulus, right? Are we just focused on our response? Or can we pause and notice the in-between, notice what's happening, initiating something, and notice how we're responding to that something, and make the choice to respond in the way that serves our highest and best.
Yes. And that is freedom.
That's freedom.
I love it how it always comes together.
It really does. And freedom really would be the banner for Live by Heart. Because when we live by heart, we know who we are. And we get to choose how to respond to others and respond to the world based on what we know, and not based on a pattern or a habit that was given to us from someone else or somewhere else.
Yes. Yeah, Michael talks about this thing called a gesture. And it's like a habit. And it's like once you start, like the things just keep happening. So I don't know.
Talk about that a little more.
Oh, just like it's like a purposeful habit. And once you get it started, like I've talked before about Twyla Tharp, who, if she could grab her gym bag, get out of bed, grab her gym bag, and get down to the cab, then the rest of the things just happen. You end up at the gym and you do all the things. But like, it might not be that big. I'm not grown up in it, but he uses the word. And it's like, once you start, the whole thing just keeps going. It's kind of like some of our dance moves we learned when we were young. And then all of a sudden we're on the dance floor and like, we're doing these things that we did years ago for some reason,
Right.
It's just a gesture. It's like the whole pattern of the movement is a whole within the system. It just happens. And some of those really serve us and some don't. And so again, just noticing and allowing.
Right. And it's the fruits. You were saying, what's the result? What's the fruit you're getting? If you're getting something you don't want, then you can change it. If I plant this seed that I don't remember what it is, or, there's no label on the package, then I wait to see what comes out of the ground. And then if I want that, I can plant some more.
Yes.
And if I don't want that, I pull it out and put in something else.
Yes. Yes. It's really great. So I'd love to do a little recap of the last two things that we did.
Please do.
So we're in the theme of living agreements. And last time we talked about growing into love, which from my perspective, yes, love as we understand it, but it's also growing into life and growing to who we are. It's growing into truth and how it is. It's growing into our unique way, our pattern that is real for us. So we talked all about that. And then today we talked about freedom of choosing and how we can choose within all that to live in freedom, to have the fruit that we're looking for. And so from my perspective, these two together go together, because it's like, how did we get here? And how do we go where we want to go? And it seems like becoming conscious is a very important thing here, and knowing that we have choices and allowing more space before we react. What else would you notice as we conclude about
those
how do
are
we
all,
get here, where we're going?
Yeah, you concluded very succinctly, I think, and thoroughly. The most important thing I would like to emphasize is that we do have choice. And when we learn to see and recognize from a place of neutrality, we've talked about neutrality before, when we take a breath, when we see the results that we are getting, and whether that's the result we want or not, that's all the start of being able to make the change. And being able to make changes is living by heart. It's our own alignment. It's aligning with who we are and who we desire to be, and not who we were told to be, not who society dictates we ought to be, but who we can express as our connection to divine and how we are. Our blueprint is created.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Anything else?
Thank everybody for being in this conversation. I'd really love for you to join it and tell us what you think. What I mean, if I were listening to this, I'd want to bring in more ideas and questions. And so please do. Wherever you find this, please write a little bit about what you notice for yourself. We'd love to hear from you.
We would love to hear from you. Thank you, Wendy, and thank you to everyone watching today. If our conversation did spoke to you, or if you have questions, please tell us what's on your heart by leaving us a comment below, or you can reach out to us directly. For more information about how you can live by heart, please go to our livebyhearttoday.com website. Like and follow this page and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our programs. We're here every week on Thursdays at 4:44 Pacific time. From our heart to yours, we are creating a better tomorrow because we live by heart today.
And that concludes this portion of
Live by Heart Today!
Thank you for watching. View more episodes on our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's give a shout out to our sponsors. Shop online at wearehistorically.com. Conscious Human Apparel.
Hi, I'm Darius Wilrich. I'll teach you everything you need to know about playing jazz piano like a pro with my 12-week online video course and downloadable guidebook, Jazz Piano Pro Essentials. Enroll today at jazzpianopro.com.
Have a happy